What's up, everybody? Thralls Metal here once again. I'm Necrotic Nick, and I have an album review for you. And one that I definitely wanted to go over that was released on the 2nd of June. Yeah, this isn't a metal album or a metal band, but I don't care. I'm a big fan of this band. So we're going to go over the latest offering from Foo Fighters with their new album, But Here We Are. Again, this also comes out on the 2nd of June on Roswell/RCA Records. This band formed in 1994 in Seattle, Washington. This was Dave Grohl's post-Nirvana project and turned out to be his most successful project. This is their 11th album overall, and this one comes in the wake of a giant tragedy. Of course, last year we lost Taylor Hawkins in March, and absolutely gut-wrenching loss to music in general. He was an amazing singer, drummer, musician, and person too, and sorely missed. And God, man, it wasn't too long after that we lost Trevor from Black Dahlia Murder. 2022 was a motherfucker. And that left an air of uncertainty about the Foo Fighters' future in terms of whether or not they would go on, because Taylor's been a huge part of the band for a number of years. And I have to be honest, I was a little surprised they resurfaced a year later, but of course they welcome returned. Dave Grohl returns on drums as well as guitars in here. They now have Josh Freese as their touring drummer, who is a longtime session drummer, has drummed for a ton of different bands, so they have a good fit behind the kit now. And as if Taylor's death wasn't tragic enough, and I didn't find this out until literally looking into this album, Dave Grohl lost his mother last year too, so a double tragedy. And yeah, that's a lot to rebound from, but I mean, Dave Grohl is truly a special human being, and yeah, I'm gonna fucking glaze over him like you wouldn't believe, because he's legit one of my favorite people in music. Not only have I been a fan since their debut album when I heard the song I'll Stick Around, and believe me, I did, over the years I've become a even bigger fan of Dave Grohl himself. He's just a very kind, down-to-earth person, and he writes very earnest rock songs, and I'm a sucker for just good, powerful rock songs. And in terms of flat out rock bands out there, the Foo Fighters, I think, are one of the best. Now, we actually went over Medicine at Midnight on the channel, and we really dug that one. It was an interesting album, kind of a loose, kind of party album. And, then the news broke about Taylor Hawkins, and I kind of anticipated a very different album on this one, and I definitely got it. This is definitely one of their most emotional and gut-wrenching albums, going through the pain of loss and coping and grieving and essentially kind of coming out of the dark. And that is definitely the overall theme on this, but it isn't all sad and gloomy, because, when you lose someone, it is a mixed bag of emotions, and you're forced to deal with it and process it. And in this case, channel it into songs. And I think, once again, the Foo Fighters have done an excellent job here. The opening track, Rescued, which was one of the lead-off singles, is just an earnest, straightforward rocker. And there are a lot of good songs like this in terms of what you expect from Foo Fighters. Big, solid rock riffs, huge anthemic choruses. Under You has an amazing one. The title track is absolutely amazing with its very gruff, bellowed chorus. Lots of emotion just pouring out of these songs. Nothing at All is a big rocker with a giant, just almost sort of angry, desperate chorus to it. You hear Dave get a lot more gruff on the vocals, essentially screaming out to anyone that will hear him. But I love how it bounces back and forth between this giant, kind of punk-like chorus and then kind of a different side of punk with an almost sort of reggae-ish twang to these single-note guitars. It's almost kind of like a Clash song. Or honestly, that one and the song Hearing Voices kind of reminded me of the Romantics, namely Talking in Your Sleep. Lots of empty spaces to hear these cool guitar lines, really awesome warm bass, and the songs are just good straight-ahead rockers. And that is something I think that is a little bit different about this album musically. It's not as loose. It's a little bit more straight ahead. The last two albums, Concrete and Gold and Medicine at Midnight, felt a little bit more loose, a little bit more experimental. They were trying different things as far as rhythms, riffs, production. This one kind of wanted to recapture an energy that kind of harks back to their early days. In fact, I was looking at some of the quotes from the band, and they said that the idea behind this one in terms of the music was to recapture the vibe of their debut album, but with more songwriting maturity that they've, learned over the years. And you can definitely hear that on tracks like Under You and The Glass. Under You has just kind of a straight ahead sort of, approach. Like, it's a more energetic, upbeat rocker, but in terms of like kind of changing it around and toying with things, there's a really interesting like phaser effect in the guitars, and it kind of like phases in and out of this like weird kind of warm, fuzzy tone. The production on here, I think, is really awesome. Like, everything's crystal clear. It's well produced versus overproduced. I suppose you can like, well produce something that's overproduced, but this still feels a little bit more on the intimate side, and that's something I really like about the Foo Fighters in general. Like, they want to capture a more raw emotional vibe and kind of a live show feel at the same time. But The Glass in particular really harks back to the 90s. Like, it has like, pretty much something you would hear on like Alternative Nation back in the 90s on MTV, that channel that used to play music all the time. Back before they discovered that housing people that don't like each other in one place really worked for ratings. Or, hey, is that a pregnant teenager? Man, we better film the shit out of that. This is just sort of like a good stripped down rock song. It has like almost sort of a Weezer-ish sort of charm to it, like, major chords. It's very warm and inviting, but lyrically it is about missing friends and family. And yeah, like, there's a lot of gloom and doom on here just in terms of the emotion, but it's totally understandable considering what all they've been through. Generally, tragedy inspires a lot of good music. It's one of the few silver linings, I guess you could say, in terms of tragedy. Like, if something good can come out of it, then, well, I mean, that's something to help cope, the catharsis of it all. Honestly, I was listening to this and drawing comparisons to Mastodon's Hush and Grim, which thematically this album is very much along those lines, especially when you get to the back half. The back half really gets very reflective. It's teased a little bit earlier in terms of like the more somber mood that will catch up, like Hearing Voices is, again, like a very reflective kind of dark song, but in terms of the hooks, it's absolutely infectious. There's a great acoustic start to it, then you hear the drums come in and this really warm, cool bass line, and they do a great job with pre-choruses. Like, there's not many bands out there that like to bother with a pre-chorus. They kind of get right fucking to the chorus. And I understand it, you want to get right to the fucking hook, but pre-choruses are awesome too, and Dave just knows how to build that up. Like, let's get a little bit more emotion welling before we get down to this big, heartfelt chorus, and absolutely nails it. But the thing I love about Hearing Voices is the end of it. Everything kind of drops out in favor of an acoustic guitar and a piano and Dave singing. And there's a lot of moments on here like that. And that is about as intimate as it gets. It's almost like him quietly dealing with the pain of loss on here. And you can feel it. I really like that level of emotional connectivity with an album like that, because losing someone is a thing everyone will go through. Like, if you live long enough, you will experience unimaginable tragedy. That is the shittiest part of life. But we all have to face it in one way or another, and at least with Dave, he has a good musical outlet here, and I really think he used it a lot towards the end. Show Me How is one of the best dreary rockers on here, and it's even more endearing for the reason that his daughter Violet actually joins him on vocals, and they have some absolutely beautiful harmonies, and it's essentially what I get from it, trying to help someone else process grief. Like, just show me how to get through this. Like, there's so much going on. And I imagine to a degree, like, his daughter was definitely there for him, during the death of his mother, during the death of Taylor. That's what family's for. And again, like, you feel it, but the song itself is just beautifully somber. Like, it just has such a warm hook despite how dark it is. And Beyond Me and Rest do an excellent job of very soft starts that build into giant crescendos, especially Rest. Rest is such an amazing closer. Starts off very quiet. It's just Dave and a guitar, and then slowly you hear, some backup vocals come in, and then all of a sudden it erupts into these giant fuzzy guitars and builds upon this melody that it was working in the beginning, and it just sounds absolutely fantastic. Beyond Me kind of does the same thing, except on this one you have like a repeated big rocker chorus about letting go and how people deal with it. It's beyond him. I love these soft to quiet dynamics on this album because it is like a giant outpouring of emotion on here. And this one is even, you know, paired up with an amazing lead that has Queen written all over it. Like, it feels like a little bit of Brian May was actually channeled during this. But the big surprise for me on here was the song The Teacher. It's a 10-minute song, and 10-minute songs are not really a thing that Foo Fighters do. I want to say they've written songs over 10 minutes before, but I can't quite remember. But either way, it's a rarity that they do something like this. And this song is absolutely huge. Lots of big emotional swells in terms of, like, you know, big raucous, you know, driving verses, quiet, subdued moments. It's very anthemic, it's very urgent, but it also has a lot of cool, like, different movements and transitions in it. There's even, like, some slightly spacey, proggy vibes towards the end. And the shifts between, again, those quiet moments and those loud moments are really felt in here, especially when it drops out towards the end before it gets down to this, like, proggy section. It becomes very haunting and very forlorn. And honestly, it didn't take me very long to figure out that this was about his mom and the impact she had and how much he still misses her wisdom and such. Again, I generally don't get, like, super, like, feely about stuff. Like, I'm generally very loose, but there's definitely some stuff in here that I resonate with on an emotional level, and I can feel it. And granted, I've listened to a lot of music out there that's been, you know, deeply personal about, you know, a myriad of things, but if the music isn't very engaging, it kind of loses me on the message. This album is everything I love about the Foo Fighters and absolutely loaded with heart. There is some retread in terms of, like, stuff that, yeah, they've done before, but they were trying to recapture a vibe of their earlier years and sort of filter it through their more mature songwriting now. But honestly, I enjoyed this entire album, and I felt it. Like, you definitely feel this album, you definitely feel the loss. This is definitely a very cathartic listen, and once the song Rest ends, it almost feels like this album is closure. Like, this is not only the close of an old chapter, but the start of a new. And I think they did it really well once again. So overall, I'm going to give this 4 stars. I think this is one of their strongest in years. I've liked the last couple. I thought they were really great, maybe a little uneven. And yeah, they were having fun with experimenting with, you know, a myriad of different things. But this feels focused and driven, and, you know, as much as part of their spirit died, it feels like part of it is also renewed here. While this album does a lot of grieving and coping, it also is sort of a light in the darkness. It really feels as though that these songs kind of push them forward, and I think they wrote some absolutely amazing songs in here. And this album gels really well as an album. It flows beautifully, the production's amazing. Dave sounds great on here. I've always loved his voice. Even the parts where Dave is screaming so hard his voice is cracking, I like that, because Dave always puts his heart into his songs. Like, that's just one of the things that Foo Fighters does well. I really wasn't sure about this album going into it, just because, again, everything they've been through, but I think they've written an absolutely amazing album here. It's on par with some of their best works. Be harder than hell to fucking rank this band if we ever decide to go off the metal grid and fucking do a Foo Fighters ranking, but man, I don't know. It's hard to say where this one will land, because I really dig it. If you're a longtime Foo Fighters fan, I'm reasonably sure you're going to love this. If you're not a Foo Fighters fan, give it a whirl. Check it out. You might actually dig it. You know, some of these songs definitely connect on an emotional level that I think everyone can understand to a degree. But, you know, musically it might not be for everyone, but still, I urge you to check it out, form your own opinions. Who knows? You might really dig this. So, if you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, and if you are new to the channel, subscribe, because we do stuff like this all the time. We are also on Patreon. If you'd like to help us out there, there's a link down below to thrallsofmetal.com. Our Patreon is there, as well as our store, which we will definitely alert you guys when we have some new stuff in there. We are working with some ideas, and we have some designs. We just gotta, I don't know, get them out there. We also have a giveaway going on. Once we hit 15,000 subscribers, I'm going to give away a stack of 10 CDs to some lucky metalhead out there. All you have to do is comment on the video link down below. It's also playing automatically on our channel. Comment and you are entered in, and once we hit that miraculously high number, because I didn't see that one, I will do a little comment randomizer and announce the winner here. And yeah, we'll be at 15,000 subscribers, and I'm going to probably thank the living fuck out of you guys, because once again, you got us probably much further than we should have gotten. It blows my mind that, you know, we're able to do this and get such a great response. You guys are definitely the reason why we've had any success and why we keep going. That in the metal, of course. But yeah, you guys all fucking rule. I'm going to thank you once again because y'all fucking deserve it, and we will catch you later.